Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program Mark Peterson, who's VP of Temperature Controlled Transportation at C.H. Robinson, and Gina Garvin, who's VP of Commercial Development and Analytics at Robinson Fresh, which is a division of C.H. Robinson. And today we're going to talk about, is your food and beverage supply chain ready for the holidays? Now, the holidays are about, many things, including gathering with friends and family for holiday meals. And since produce and fresh ingredients are typically a key part of holiday meals, safely transporting these, temperature sensitive items, making sure that they're delivered on time and in full, and keeping them freshly stocked on store shelves is vitally important for food retailers. So this, combined with the holiday deadlines, present some unique challenges for the industry. Well, what are some of those challenges? What capabilities, and how do they impact the transportation and logistics industry? And what capabilities will separate the leaders from the laggards? Well, those are some of the key questions we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Mark and Gina on the program to share their insights and advice on this topic. So Mark, Gina, welcome to the program.
Morning, Adrian. Thank you for having us.
Great. Well, Gina, I'll start with you first, just as a way to get the conversation started. I mean, thinking about the holidays are just around the corner right now. Obviously, a lot of folks are going to be shopping out there for those holidays meals. I mean, what are some of the key trends facing the food and beverage industry as we head into this holiday season?
Sure. Yeah. Well, broadly speaking, shoppers are expected to spend roughly $1,500 per household this upcoming holiday season. And food and beverage is a real big driver of where their spend is going. In fact, it outpaces any other category within the retail categories. So that's a big spend, and that's something that we really critically need to get right from when we're thinking about where the consumer is going, how they're shopping, and what's important to them this holiday season. The other thing that's really important is health and wellness. Health and wellness has become a year-round focus. It's no longer a New Year's resolution. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of increases in fresh and perishable offerings. So that's really important. In fact, the American Heart Association estimated that 80% of cardiovascular disease could actually be prevented by healthy diets and a healthy lifestyle. And this is front of mind for consumers today. So as they're going in and they're thinking about where they're spending their money and how they're spending their time with their families, they really are increasing that awareness. And it's not just a New Year's resolution anymore, right? So we're not waiting till January 1st to start those diets and think about how to incorporate more fruits and vegetables. And then the final thing that I would say that is just a trend to be aware of when we think about inventory through the supply chain and specifically to food and beverage, retailers need to focus on winning in the in-between. And what I mean is shoppers are changing their eating habits. And this has been something that we've been seeing over, the last decade, right? There's more snacking. So they're eating 5 meals versus 3 meals a day, but those meals are smaller. We're seeing that bleed into the holidays in terms of their how many different occasions that they're hosting. So people are hosting more. They're having less traditional big sit-down meals, and they're having much more frequent smaller gatherings. So people are usually going to a couple of these events, and so those items and those dishes have more. They're smaller. They're usually using more fresh ingredients, and they're a little healthier.
Yeah, no, those are all interesting trends, and I know it's pretty evident in my family as well. I mean, we've got a family of 6, 4 kids, but definitely if you go back 10, 15 years ago in terms of how we're eating today, in terms of the types of meals that we eat, and kind of the habits that we form not only during the holidays but year round. Definitely this move toward fresher foods, and this move toward, having more multiple meals, if you will, versus, the traditional breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
right.
and what those snacks, quote unquote snacks or mini meals in between are, right? So that really has, changed the types of foods that, that we buy. And I know my wife does most of the shopping in our household, but I know that she goes to multiple, stores to get the different types of ingredients and foods that she's looking for the types of foods that we eat here in our house.
Yeah, it really increases the variety. So too, it's important to have a lot of variety, definitely within the fresh space, because people are looking for new flavors. They're looking at different ways to create an interesting eating experience. That's important and very much important when you think about going into the holiday and bringing that to your friends and family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Mark, let's translate, all these trends that we just talked about and bring it now into kind of a transportation and logistics, framework. I mean, what impact do the holidays have on, the transportation and logistics market?
So nobody likes the holidays less than the transportation providers. The market is typically tighter during the holiday season. It's simple. You can break that down into just having an overabundance of demand with a reduced amount of capacity available. And when you think about that, it's really not rocket science, I guess, that drivers are like everybody else, and given the opportunity, many of them are going to want to stay with their friends and family over the holidays as well. So that adds additional disruption to an already troublesome marketplace. So some of the shippers have started to develop programs where they can do incentives for the transportation providers to be able to pull drivers off of their couches and the exercising, and to be able to actually incent them to retain a higher level of compliance with their route guides, so that they keep people on the roads and delivering things on time. With all that being said, though, 2020, we are dealing with a little bit more of an oversupplied market. It's a lot different in 2019, obviously, than we were in certain parts of 2018. When we look ahead to what 2020 might look like, a lot of the analysts are looking at new truck orders. 2019 had more of a depressed marketplace in that. So as people are retiring assets, they weren't replenishing them to the level that they would need in order to keep the levels where they have to be in order to sustain the business. So looking at what that looks like into 2020 to see exactly what might be happening there. Some analysts are predicting more like 2019. A few of them on the more bullish side are saying that things may improve and get back into more of the historical space from a rate growth perspective. When you look at the temperature controlled specific, which is a lot of what we're talking about here on the food and bev, is that the loadings are forecasted to grow 3%, and the capacity sector for temp control is highly fragmented, Adrian. It represents about 17% of the for-hire market is in the temp control, and about 91% of those reefer companies would have less than 5 tractors. And when you look at 50 and less, that makes up about 99% of the overall market, 98.7 to be more precise, I guess. So looking at 3PLs like a C.H. Robinson that can help you manage the hundreds to literally thousands of small carrier relationships that may be required to provide the capacity you need to move these sensitive shipments that Gina was referencing. So, for Robinson with us, our network includes a little over 21,000 vetted high-quality temperature-controlled contract carriers. We estimate there's probably somewhere around 37,000 in the for-hire market in general. But a 3PL can aggregate this fragmented capacity into a simplified and efficient experience for the customer while communicating with the carrier community in the way that they want to be communicated with. When you think about the broad spectrum of those carriers, some can be highly sophisticated down to the owner-operators, and it's not as simple as just having a tech solution for that. You have to meet them in the space that they want to be communicated with. So for us, working with a 3PL that has the capabilities to meet that capacity where they want to communicate, obviously sophisticated technology that connect with ELDs and the onboard platforms, but also operating for us with a 24/7 people in the office to be able to deal with problems as they arrive, and let the technology drive the efficiency and the automation side.
Yeah, no, great overview. I mean, certainly, I think when you think talking about the increase in demand for some of these products, and ingredients and foods, over this period, with the capacity, and then kind of looking at the capacity picture, which, as you talked about, transportation in general is very fragmented, but the temperature control aspect of it, is a subsegment of that, which in itself is also very fragmented and have, many small players in it. So, making sure that you're able to connect and reach that capacity to meet this increased demand is certainly, very critical. And as you mentioned, technology plays a role here. Obviously, people play a role here. And I'm going to focus in on those aspects, later on. But Gina, going back to you, I mean, from a consumer's perspective, I mean, is food shopping, different during the holidays and other times of the years? I mean, do people go in with different, preferences or expectations when they go shopping?
Yeah, well, what I will tell you is, like anything, I think people are a little more focused and a little more deliberate during the holidays in terms of what they're shopping. During other times of the year, consumers will often substitute out of stock items, like produce items, with other readily available items, especially true within fruits, right? So when you think about, your clementines, you can easily substitute a snacking item like a clementine with grapes, or maybe with berries, right? But that's less so during the holidays when more people are focused on specific recipes, right? And so those specific recipes call for a specific commodity and they can't necessarily be replaced. And so you see a lot of things like cranberries that have like an 1,800% increase, right, during the holidays. You can't really substitute cranberries within a recipe, right, with another item. Sweet potatoes, yams, these are things that are really important to consumers in their recipes that they want to bring to the table. They might want to bring it in a new, fresh way, but they still see about a 400% increase. And then you look at some things like green beans, right? And they have all these different ways in which they're cooking them. These are things that either you have a historical or traditional or heritage connection to that you want to bring front and center to your family, or it's specific to a new recipe you want to try. And so people need to have that on shelf, right? And so it's critically important during the holidays. You have the right items on shelf and front and center, easily accessible to find for your shoppers, because your shoppers are coming in and they're expecting to be able to purchase those items from you. And if you don't have them on shelf, you don't have them easily accessible, you don't have them conveniently located and with the right price point, you're going to lose that shopper year round. That's going to haunt you year round, right? So they're going to come to you during the holiday time frame to really create that connection with you, but you're going to need to have the right items stocked up and front and center.
Yeah, it boils down to, something we've been talking a lot here at Talking Logistics around customer experience, right? And then if you, like you mentioned, around this time, a lot of folks look back to their family recipes, right? Maybe it's grandma's recipe for, that cranberry sauce, or, that dish that requires those green beans or whatever the case might be. And like you said, they're not going to substitute that because that's exactly, that ingredient is what the recipe calls for. And they want that, they want to recall their childhood when their grandma used to make that, that dish. So making sure that ingredient, that, whether it's the sweet potatoes or the yams or the green beans or so forth are in stock when they go to the store. So Mark, that brings me back to you. I mean, when it comes to the retailers, I mean, a lot of these retailers either don't have a lot of space, within their stores to carry a lot of inventory, or they just don't want to carry a lot of inventory. They want to kind of get replenished on a more kind of frequent basis, make sure that the product is, as fresh as possible and so forth. So, but how do you do that? How do you make sure that product is in stock and fresh, in light of those constraints? I mean, how do you achieve that balance in terms of, not having enough space or not wanting to carry enough inventory, but making sure, as Gina talked about, that when you go to the store, that those ingredients are there?
Yeah, here's more problems for the transportation providers, right? Peaches and cream here. So you're right, retailers, they may be crammed for space, unable to keep all needed inventory on hand, yet they still require the freshest product. This may cause a need for the more frequent deliveries, as you're mentioning, and for products to be held closer to where the stores and where the consumption is going to actually occur. So this causes problems with the on time and full, or can cause problems with that. It's really important that you work with a service provider, as you're mentioning, that provides the suite of services that are really necessary to problem solve for this time period. And so a couple of those things that people should be on the lookout for, services such as retail consolidation or different types of LTL programs. Obviously, the consolidation is a great service product because it consolidates multiple shipments into one truck. You get a better experience with on time and full. You have a more consistent experience with how you do the predictability of the on time, and you actually reduce cost by having less trucks bumping the dock from the retail community, so it conserves time for them as well. That doesn't always work. And so having someone that also has the ability to provide straight LTL services for those things that are unable to be consolidated is also a great thing, and something that people should be looking for in a service provider, to be able to get all of those things handled at one space, or with the lesser amount of opportunities as possible over the greatest geographic span.
Yeah, no, those are great points. Actually, we did an episode earlier this year with one of your colleagues there on retail consolidation programs, which I think was, very, very informative. So I'll direct our viewers to, check out that episode, because we went into some detail there. But I think that was a very interesting, perspective there. So Gina, going back to the shopping experience, I mean, of course, there's a lot of different ways that, consumers, shop for food, today, whether it's, walking the aisles of the grocery store, or shopping online and get it delivered to their home, or click and collect. I mean, what impact is this diversity in shopping and delivery, having?
A big impact. Omnichannel is one of the biggest topics when it comes to convenience for shoppers, right? Convenience is a long trend, right? It kind of helped grow that concept of mass merchandisers so many decades ago. And now it's just taking a new form, right? Consumers still demand convenience. And that new form, enabled by technology and greater efficiencies in our supply chains, really has enabled this omni-channel experience, right? Being able to shop seamlessly from multiple different channels. And that's really having a significant impact on our supply chains. So when you think about online grocery shopping, mobile and digital, it's expected to triple in the next 5 years, which, that should make up about 70% of grocery shopping being done online. That's significant, right? And so not to mention the fact that 72% of all food consumption is actually decided within 1 hour of eating. These are massive evolvements to our industry, right? And provide a lot of complications and a lot of pressures on our supply chains to be more nimble, right? To be able to be more flexible. These two consumer trends are really going to enable, in my opinion, macro growth of micro supply chains. Micro supply chains that can really support high-speed inventory turns, on demand, just in time, having the right items on shelf, really using more data and insights and analytics to help drive those decisions so that you have that right inventory on hand. Because consumers, we all are accustomed to having everything on demand, right? Even my 4-year-old. he assumes that Amazon is just going to come to our house, within 2 hours with his new, pirate toy. Those things are really, really important. So as we head into the holidays, getting the right items out front, easy to find, making sure you have those items in stock so they don't go to another store, like we talked about before. Make sure that you have that overall shopping experience that's simple and convenient through omni-channel shopping that can really just create that loyalty with your shopper so that you retain them all year long, but it also will help drive more consistency through the supply chain too.
No, great points. I mean, I know that, again, here in our own household, we do all of the above, right? We shop online. We go to the traditional way of walking the aisles of the grocery stores. We go to multiple grocery stores. And that just, that diversity, at the end of the day, like, Mark mentioned earlier, it just creates, it just complicates and creates additional challenges from a transportation, and logistics standpoint, because again, now you have to make sure that no matter what channel the shopper is, engaged in, you're going to have that product available in stock. It's going to be fresh and meet all of their expectations, regardless of, the way they're shopping. So Mark, bringing it back to you, I mean, a lot of everything that we've talked about, I mean, what is the role of, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, in terms of people and technology. I mean, what's the role of people and technology in keeping food and beverage supply chains running smoothly, especially during the holidays?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I think as we've been talking about, there's all of these problems, and you've got all this demand compressed into a shorter time period. Then you throw in these potential weather impacts that we have around this time of the year as well. It does make things a little bit stressful. And and working with a party that clearly, everybody today is talking about visibility, right? It's how do you see things? How do you predict where things are going to be moving? How do I know that there's going to be a problem so I can not try and avert that and work around it so it doesn't exist? And so there's certainly the capabilities of the service providers out there to provide that visibility on the technology so it's accessible when you need it is super important. And you hear a lot about that today in various communications from the companies out there. And without a doubt, for us, selfishly with Robinson, we're really proud of the technology that we have and our capabilities in that space. Many others are as well. But after that, I think it's really, and specifically when you start talking about temp control and food, having really qualified people that you can rely on are absolutely essential to the success. I mean, you think about the speed of that PO that's making its way through the system, and the fact that many of the products that Gina was referencing, they ship overnight. It's not like during regular business hours, and so problems occur. And having really solid people that know what they're doing to deal with the problems at the time that they occur is essential. We had at Robinson to go through a certification process. We've got a little over 8,000 people qualified in STF to deal with regulatory issues at the time that they're occurring. And those things are super important. Those people need to act as an extension of the customer and really understand what's going on in order to aid the process to push these products through with the urgency they need to in the holiday.
Both things are critically important. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of focus today on visibility and the technology and being able to do predictive ETAs and being able to be proactive, in terms of, resolving any issues before they occur. But I think, the people side, I think often gets overlooked, the role and importance of people. I think that, that's a critical piece of this whole puzzle. So kind of having, a team of folks that understand the food supply chain, understand the safety components of it, and obviously the logistics aspects of it, to be able to, again, navigate through all the different challenges that exist every day in this industry, but certainly get heightened, during the holiday season. So, Gina, Mark, we're running short on time here, so I'm just going to go to my last question now. And Gina, I'll start with you, and then Mark, you can add your perspective as well. So, I mean, as a way to wrap up, Gina, I mean, what questions should companies in the food and beverage industry ask themselves to assess, whether their supply chain is ready for the holidays?
It's a good question. I think about the challenges of myself, even organizing the gifts for all of my family members and friends, right? And the complexity that brings to me, let alone a supply chain for a customer, for a retailer, or anyone in the food and beverage industry through the supply chain. One of the things that I think is critically important, though, and I do see more and more customers moving towards, is having a really solid partnership and plan. So rather than treating their suppliers or working with their partners in a kind of a transactional way, really thinking longer term with them and putting their plans in place so that they can make sure that they've got a backup plan, that both the supplier and the partner through the supply chain can help them through contingencies. And you've got issues that come up. You understand what their end goals are and what's critically important. So I think having that longer term plan and really starting to partner further out so that you can create and execute to those plans is really, really important.
Great point, Mark. Any thoughts there in terms of questions or what's going to separate the leaders from the laggards, moving forward in the industry?
I think Gina hit it on the head, Adrian. It's really picking a provider that has the suite of services that is capable of meeting multiple types of demands, and then really looking at the people side of it and how they're able to react and what their expertise is. But more importantly, and broadly importantly, is really the planning component. I can't stress that enough. In most of these conversations that we have, the leaders and the laggards are going to be separated by those who deal with things in a proactive manner and look to the future and really communicate with their service providers around what their needs are.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think, whether it's in sports or in supply chain and everything in between, the more you can plan and anticipate, upfront and really, have a game plan in place, the better able you are, to succeed or address any challenges that come up versus, being completely unprepared or, not having done any work, upfront. So I think that, certainly when it comes to this industry that's constantly changing from a customer expectation side, technology side, regulation side, and obviously from a transportation standpoint, market dynamics and capacity and so forth, keeping a pulse of what's happening and planning effectively moving forward is certainly critical for success here. Gina, Mark, like I always say at the end of all our episodes, we always just manage to scratch the surface on these topics, but both of you provided some great insights and perspective on what's happening in the food and beverage industry, particularly during the holidays and what it takes to succeed. So thank you both for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adrian. We appreciate it.
Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the CH Robinson website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question or a comment for Gina or Mark, you can post it there. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.